Appalachian Genealogy presents the legal cold shoulder, finding ancestors in worn out records.
If you've ever spent hours digging through old county records, you might have hit a wall and then suddenly found your ancestor's name next to a phrase that sounds, well, downright hostile. It's one of those things that just stops you in your tracks.
You might find something that looks just like this: your ancestor's name, followed by the words "warned to depart." And it's not just a note in a margin. This comes straight from official early American legal documents. So what on earth does that mean?
I mean, let's be honest. Your mind immediately goes to the worst-case scenario, right? Were they being evicted? Were they seen as troublemakers? Or maybe even criminals? Was your family literally getting run out of town? Well, while it sounds incredibly dramatic, the truth is usually a lot more about bureaucracy than it is about banishment. So let's pull back the curtain on this legal cold shoulder and figure out what was really going on here. Okay, so let's just get this out of the way right now. The answer to were they kicked out is almost always a big, fat no. This wasn't about a physical eviction. It was all about the money. So, if it wasn't an order to pack up and leave, what in the world was it? Well, this document had a very specific legal job to do. And once you understand that, you'll see why these records are so incredibly useful for us. A warning out was, for all intents and purposes, a legal disclaimer. It was the town officials basically saying, hey, welcome to town, but just so we're clear, if you fall on hard times, we are not financially responsible for you. This idea actually came over from the English poor laws. It wasn't a physical wall, it was a financial one. And this really breaks it down perfectly. The myth is that it's an eviction order telling a family they have to get out. But the reality is that it was just a financial notice, a piece of legal paperwork. In fact, tons of families who were warned out never left. They stayed for years, even decades, and became respected members of the community. The town was just covering its assets, legally speaking. Okay, so you might be thinking, it's just boring financial paperwork. Why should I care? Well, here's why you should get excited. These notices are an absolute genealogical goldmine, especially for finding those ancestors who seem to be completely invisible. Think about it. These records capture the exact people who fall through the cracks of history. The renters who never owned land so they're not in deed books, the seasonal workers who were only in town for a short time, people living with their relatives, leaving no paper trail of their own. If you have an ancestor who just vanishes between census records, a warning out notice might be the only piece of paper in the entire world that proves they were in that specific place at that specific time.
All right, I bet you're thinking, where can I find these? So let's talk about where you should start looking. We're going to add this to your research toolkit right now.
Your best bet is to start with the county court minutes. That's where the formal orders were often recorded. Then you absolutely have to check the records of the overseers of the poor. It was their job to manage this stuff. Now, fair warning, sometimes the only surviving record is a single scrap of paper buried in a box of unindexed, loose court papers at the courthouse or archive. And don't forget to check town meeting minutes too. It can be a real hunt, but trust me, the payoff can be massive. Theory is great, but let's see how this works in the real world. This case study is a fantastic example of how these records can absolutely smash the brick wall. So, meet our mystery man, John Carter. The year is 1817. A researcher is looking for him, but he's a total ghost. He's not on any tax lists. He doesn't own any land. According to all the usual records, he just wasn't there. But then, boom, the researcher finds it, a warning out notice for John Carter and his family. And tucked inside this seemingly hostile notice is the one clue that changes everything. It says the family had arrived from Washington County, Virginia. Just like that, our ghost now has a backstory and a place of origin. But it gets even better. This is where a technique called cluster research comes into play. The researcher noticed that 2 other families were warned out on the exact same day, and guess what? They also came from Washington County, Virginia. Then, connecting the dots, a witness on a later Carter family marriage certificate had the same last name as one of those other warned-out families. What this single record revealed wasn't just one family, it was an entire group of people who traveled together, a whole kinship network. So just think about that for a second. That one little notice took a family that was completely lost to history and anchored them to a specific place at a specific time and connected them to an entire community. The brick wall was demolished. So the next time you hit a wall in your research, don't forget to look for the warning out notice. It might look like a legal cold shoulder,
But honestly, it could turn out to be the warmest lead you'll ever find. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What quiet journeys and hidden stories could these records unlock in your own family tree?
Thanks for joining us today. Like, follow, and share for more Appalachian history, stories, and genealogy. Visit us on the blog at www.appalachiangenealogy.com.